The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Yes! Hello my friends, welcome to the Magicians Podcast. Before we get to today's episode with David Penn, I need to talk to you quickly about Gigi-O. It's a web-based software for semi-professional and professional entertainers like yourself. It tracks your payments, it produces PDF contracts and invoices, and it makes everything so much more easier to run than you could ever do it by yourself. Read what others are saying about it, and critically, take a free 30-day trial so you can check this out for yourself and see how amazing it is at gigio.co.uk. That's Gigi-O spelled GIGGIO.co.uk. If you go to their website right now, you can read what other entertainers are saying about it. It is brilliant, and it is time for you to jump on board. Welcome everybody to episode 12 of the Magicians Podcast with David Penn. This marks the halfway point of the series. There are lots more episodes still to come, so do me a favour. You must have a magician friend who does not know about the Magicians Podcast. So send them a text message, maybe email them a link, but do me a favour, spread the word. We're trying to get the widest audience here we possibly can. If you haven't done it already, please follow us on Twitter. We are at Magician Podcast. No S on the Magician. If, however, you use Facebook, search for the Magicians Podcast page. Very easy to find, and there's a nice little community building up on there. After every episode, if you want to discuss what you've heard, go to our Facebook page. So, my guest today is David Penn. He's a stage illusionist, a close-up magician. He owns the World Magic Shop. He was a semi-finalist on Britain's Got Talent, and well, his achievements just go on and on and on. I was absolutely over the moon when he agreed to sit down with me and do an interview for you guys. So I travelled to see him at the World Magic Shop. Here he is then, David Penn. Great stuff. So here we are with David Penn. David, thank you very much for meeting me. I really appreciate it. And what an amazing setup you've got here as well. I've just had the tour of World Magic Shop. How long have you been here for?
We've been on this site now for over a year, but I kind of want to say nearly 2 years. I'm not sure exactly how long, but we were in Birmingham to start with. And John, my business partner, and I lived about an hour from that site, and it was just logistically impossible with the M6 motorway to get there and kind of try and run a business as well as running a performing business at the same time.
I want to just literally start right at the beginning, actually. I think, reading a bit of research I've done, I think your beginning was your granddad doing a trick for you.
Yeah, I think it's that old sort of Copperfield chestnut that everybody trots out, but for me it is true. My granddad used to do the odd bit of magic. He used to have like a lighter and pretend to put the flame in his hand, and that fascinated me as a kid. And then sort of making a coin disappear, made a toy soldier disappear once, and it was on the kitchen table at home. And then the usual route to sort of magic as a hobby, really. Practicing tricks at school, showing a few friends, and then gradually finding out there was more to it and discovering Russell Hall's magic shop in Sheffield. Used to save all my dinner money instead of spending it on food, and used to sneak on the bus from Dinnington to Sheffield every Saturday and go and buy at least one trick. Wow. And sometimes you got a good one, sometimes you got a bad one.
Did you ever have a normal job, or did you go straight into magic?
When I left school, my dad kind of, I won't say pressurised me, because I think it was the right thing to do, but I went to work for Tesco as a part-timer while I was in the sixth form at school. Soon gave that up because I was doing kids' parties, and that was a lot more fruitful and a lot more enjoyable. And then for nearly a year, I went to work for Toys R Us on like a managerial sort of route there. And I had a great opportunity come my way, and it was just a no-brainer.
I didn't know that. So you did kids' parties?
I actually won UK Kids Entertainer of the Year.
Wow.
And then pretty much immediately retired from kids entertainment. I used to actually love doing kids' parties. And occasionally, my stuff's in the loft. If a friend says do one for me, I will actually do it for them if I'm free. And I really enjoy it and I actually want to go back to it. And it wasn't that sort of cheesy sort of magician style of kids parties. I was very much what I was aspiring to do was do sort of real magic at kids parties. So I would do things like linking rings where the adults could watch and think, God, how the hell's that work? And when I did Kids Entertainer of the Year, I was the first person in the UK to get the snowstorm off Kevin James. I was the first person to do it. Nobody had even seen the snowstorm in the UK, and I did it at UK Kids Entertainer of the Year, and the reaction from the pros in the audience was unbelievable.
Right.
If you can imagine the first time you saw a snowstorm, well, I was officially the first person to do it in the UK, because I'd seen Kevin do it in the It's Magic show in LA, and he said to me, he did it, and I went up to him backstage. It was him and Ron Lucas there, another one of my idols, the ventriloquist, and I said to Kevin, if ever you sell that, please will you get in touch with me? And he did, and I was the first person to have a snow stall in the UK.
Wow. So but you retired quite quickly from kids entertainment?
Yeah, not by choice,
really? Just
by sort of supply and demand. I could do all the kids shows I wanted, but people were asking me to do them at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was actually then forcing me to disappoint the odd person when an illusion show booking came in, or a more financially viable close-up booking in central London. And the days I was thinking, crikey, I could have done that booking, but I'm doing a kids show locally. You really have to think long and hard about how you're going to provide for your family.
Sure, absolutely. So I think it's fair to say you're really known as an illusionist, I think, and a lot of people who have seen you on Britain's Got Talent will know you for illusions. Is that your real passion, or do you love all of magic? Is there a bit that you're particularly passionate about?
Do you know what? It changes all the time. Like, I remember a year ago, from today, the day we're recording the podcast, I bought a couple of new illusions. I bought an op art illusion, which we call abstract, just to stop people searching the name on YouTube and finding any other performances. And it's great when you get something new and you're putting something new into your act and you get very passionate about it, or your act's moving in a different direction in some way. But that can happen with all aspects of magic that I'm performing. I've been spending a lot of time with Peter Turner recently, and he just got me very excited about mentalism and re-scripting things that I do with my close-up performance. And I guess the answer to the question is my passion constantly changes.
Nice.
If I've got a new release, I'm very passionate about that for that time. If it's a new illusion, I get really into that. Close up, I'll spend like 2 months in front of the mirror, and then I'll think, right, that's done now, and I'll move on to something else. Constantly changing for me.
Every illusionist has got an interesting story where they loved illusions, and then the day comes where you have to buy your first illusion.
Yeah.
So what was that for you, and how long was that process? How did you really get into illusions, I think is what I'm asking.
Well, certainly one of my idols growing up was Wayne Dobson. I've literally followed him around all over the place. Anytime I saw him going to work, Aylesbury, I saw him do a cabaret there before he was even famous, but I just knew his name. I went to see all the recordings of his shows at Central TV for his first series, and I was doing other things. I was actually a promoter of under-18 dance nights with a DJ friend of mine, and that was working out very, very well for me. And Wayne just decided to sell a couple of illusions, like his sword box and his pyramid. And I think everybody that's done magic on stage aspires to having some really great illusions, and the opportunity just came my way at the right point. I bought another couple of illusions, the reducer and the clear soaring, from Jonathan Pendragon and Bill Smith at the same time. So I think the opportunity just came about at the right time to buy all these illusions. And all of a sudden, I had an illusion act. And I was practicing martial arts at the time, Aikido, and that gave me a certain amount of stage movement craft and ability, even though I've never been trained as a dancer. I think I had, with that Aikido training, that sort of inbuilt way to stand and kind of look okay on stage, and I'm just going to say get away with it, because I'm certainly not the best mover on stage, but I think I get away with it by going from one sort of dramatic movement to another. And when you're doing something like the clear soaring, you're basically just doing one move after another and asking for applause in the middle of it.
Yeah, so when you get into the illusions, were you immediately looking to go into like corporates, or were you looking at maybe going down the road of, try and get on TV or doing public shows? What was your thought process?
When I first got that selection of illusions, my very next goal was to do like a mini theatre tour of my own. So I toured a show, and we did about 8-9 dates, and as a result of doing that tour and taking photos, getting very good video footage from it, more events, company organisers, production companies started getting in touch saying we needed like a 40-minute or a 20-minute spot down at the Grosvenor House, and I just started getting more illusions.
In 2011, every magician in the country was trying to get on to Fool Us. You
Right.
didn't. You went down a different route, and you went on Britain's Got Talent. What was your thought process with that in terms to why? I mean, everybody, I think it's fair to say, and you would, I hope, agree, Britain's Got Talent's a bit of a risk, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, what was your thought process going into it, and how did you make your decision to give it a go?
It's quite a deep decision as well. I was offered Fool Us. I was offered a guaranteed spot on Fool Us for the clear soaring in half by the head of ITV Light Entertainment, but I turned it down at the time because I was doing Britain's Got Talent. The reason I did Britain's Got Talent was because, in all honesty, my wife told me not to do it.
Right.
And my wife, who is now my ex-wife, was... It was kind of like, right, I'm going to take action. I'm going to start doing things that I want to do. And I was very sort of negative at that point with what had happened in my life, getting divorced and that kind of thing. So as a result of that, it was like, well, she said I can't do it. I will do it. And she had the same feeling, probably correct, actually, that a lot of people have with regards to Britain's Got Talent. Like you said, it is a risk. It's a terrible risk, actually, because it can go so badly wrong, and I think so many people fall victim in the edit to that show. But I just had this belief that I wanted to do it, and I really wanted to prove it to myself that I could do it.
How did it's fair to say you were billed as a double act on that. It wasn't David Penn. How did the double act with Karen come about? Well,
one thing I like to sort of pride myself on is think about how you're going to actually market yourselves. And I thought about what Britain's Got Talent was and how it's perceived by the public and the people that do well on these sorts of shows. And it was an idea of mine to not go on and try and be the sort of the big I'm this great illusionist, I've got my assistant. And it was kind of like a whole sort of double act. We work together, it's a team, and I won't deny that was to get the women voters as well as the male voters. It was all sort of structured in a way to create that certain backstory, and myself and Karen had very clear objectives about how we wanted to be perceived by the British public. And even though I'm sure anybody looking at it will recognise the same illusions that I've had in my act for years, it was very much pitched as a double act. And also, for contractual reasons, they insist on managing your act. So what I did was create a new act.
Oh, so you could still be David Penn,
Yes.
and look after yourself separately.
Yes.
Very clever.
But they would manage that act, and I could legitimately say to them when they got all, touchy about contracts and that kind of thing, I could literally say, well, you only manage that act, and that act is those illusions.
Right, I see.
So a close-up booking, I would have certainly all the call over it I wanted to. But if they wanted to book the illusions that David and Karen performed, then that was fine if they wanted to represent that for the small amount of time that they did.
And how did the sort of professional relationship with Karen come about?
Well, I've just known Karen for years, for literally years. And I knew her dad very well, David Tompkins, who's a fabulous children's entertainer. And she'd actually approached me sort of 6-7 years ago about being an assistant in the Illusion Act. And then, my wife left me, who was my assistant at the time. I think that's something that a lot of illusionists fall into, about using partners in their act. And I needed somebody else that was a great dancer and a great personality to work with me on this Britain's Got Talent project, and immediately fulfill jobs that I had in the diary.
So there's lots of stories of Britain's Got Talent being awful by magicians out there, but did you have a good experience with it overall, or?
Overall, coming out the other end, as I land in the drain and I'm washed down the path, it's all come out, I would say it was a good experience. But yeah, I did have to go through quite a few sewers pipes to get to that point. And what I would say to anybody that's listening to this who's thinking about going on is assume that you will have 15% control over your performance. Really? And that is the very scary thing about it, is that they put you in a position where as you move further and further through the process, they start to change the way you dress, they start to change the way you look, they tell you what music you want to use. I pretty much threatened to walk off the show because they insisted on me using the Pirates of the Caribbean theme for the water tank illusion.
Right.
That sort of
Yeah.
And it would have been so cheesy that I just put my foot down and said no, I wasn't going to do it. But I think they probably want you to use music tracks that they've got the rights to, and it is a little bit difficult. And yeah, they dress you, they change you, they manipulate you, they tell you you've got 2.5 minutes, and then 2 weeks before you do it they tell you it's now down to 1.5 minutes, which is why anybody watching it thinking, well, that's not good, there was no build up, there was no drama. I was told literally you've got 1.5 minutes.
Wow.
So to do an illusion like that in that length of time is very, very difficult.
And what we don't see, obviously, because the series ends, is what is life like afterwards? Are they still in control of you for a while? Or?
Well, yeah, we were managed by the production company's management company for 3 months afterwards for the David and Karen Act. We did a lot of fantastic bookings, some great opportunities. But it doesn't continue, it doesn't keep going forever. But certainly for 6 months after, it was very, very good. And even today, I still get bookings as a result of being on Britain's Got Talent. And I'm still proud of the fact that, as Amanda Holden said on the show, she was the one that said it, not me, that we broke the mould. And we're the first magic act to make any sort of real impact on the show.
Yeah, you sort of opened the doors, didn't you?
I would like to think, and I said on the show, the night we went out, that was very disappointing for me, mainly because we had something great planned for the final. But that I said on the night that there were a lot of great magicians in the UK, and I said this on live TV, I managed to get it out without them having a choice of editing it out or not, and one day one will reach the final. And I also said live on the show as well, again before they could stop me, was that magic is an art form, and it's not seen in the same respect as sort of singing and dancing, and which always traditionally has done well on the show. But magic, well, they just took the piss out of it. Basically, it's kind of like a cheap shot. We can easily make a magician look bad and make it look funny / entertaining in the edit. And I really wanted to say, this is an art form, and hopefully give somebody else the confidence to take it further, which of course James has, and Darcy did this year, even though he's Canadian. Enough said.
Yeah, absolutely. What's most interesting about you, actually, when I was doing my research, is there's just so many. In fact, I've already done the intro for this podcast, and when I was recording it last night, I was thinking about, you just do so many things. You're an illusionist, you're a close-up magician, you've got your own magic shop, and I want to talk to you a little bit about close-up magic, because you've been working professionally for quite a long time, haven't you, as a close-up magician? What year did you start with?
I think I turned professional in about 1992.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So like well over 20 years.
Yeah.
How has close-up magic changed for you in that time?
Well, I can remember doing close-up magic and lecturing on it in about 1994, and I used to say close-up magic's the next big thing. I actually used to say that in my lecture, and you would get guys going, no, that's never going to happen. And people just didn't really believe it. Blaine wasn't on the scene in those days, and close-up magic has just... the people's perception towards close-up magic has changed, where you can actually see a magician these days. When I started, people's perception was the only time you could see a magician was on stage in a theatre, and maybe at a children's party. That sort of whole environment of seeing close-up magic at a live event hadn't really opened up yet. Maybe it had been seen in London, but it certainly hadn't made its way into the villages like Northampton.
Yeah, absolutely. So with close-up magic, do you really still go after corporates, or do you do weddings, or do you go after lots of different areas of people who book close-up magicians?
I think it's important, if you're going to be a professional these days doing any style of magic, if somebody rings you and wants you to do a job, you can do it, and you can do it to a very high level. And that's something that I pride myself on, is being able to fulfill any client's needs with regard to magic. Close-up magic, I will just literally go anywhere, do anything. A wedding, I love doing weddings because it's always tends to be a great atmosphere. Sort of corporate events in London can be a bit harder because of the personalities that you find down there, but over the years I've learned how to handle those jobs where you might find more cynical people that have seen it all, done everything. And you just have to be able to do everything and perform in every environment, and I'm happy to do that.
In terms of pricing, do you market yourself in the middle, or are you a bit more high end, or do you flex based on the time of the year and other people's availability and things like that?
I think I'm probably one of the most expensive close-up magicians out there. I would think I'm probably in the top 10% of the highest of what people would charge. But like anybody, if somebody rings me and says tomorrow night I've got this on the table and I'm free and it's an hour down the road, I will probably think, well, do you know what, I'm going on holiday next year, that will pay for our Disneyland tickets. I'm on it. Yeah, I'm there. And I think you have to be flexible, and anybody that says they aren't, well, good luck to them, because they must be doing very, very well.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
You mentioned back a few minutes ago about back in the day people could only see magic in theatres, and following Britain's Got Talent, I think it was in the autumn, you hired, I think you did, or unless there was a production company behind it, you put on a show in your hometown. Yeah. I was there in the audience.
Oh, right,
and, tell me, is that a big decision, doing that, trying to, putting on your own show? And
it is. It's a lot more goes into it than people think, and I think we had sort of 900 people there that night, which was a fantastic turnout.
It was amazing. It was packed,
and it was, the worst thing about it is you get a lot of people in the audience that know you and know you personally, friends from the gym, your family, your friends, all sorts of people. And I don't know if you find this, and people listening, but it's very hard to perform for people who you know. Yeah. And when you look out and you see not only friends in the magic world, but real close friends that know you're not entirely like your on-stage persona, and you're trying to be like this dramatic person at one point, and they're like, well, that's not that guy, he's the guy that's always fooling around at the gym, or you kind of feel a little bit nervous about doing a show like that. Financially, it is a risk, because you've got to pay everybody, you've got to get everybody involved. There's the marketing, there's the advertising that you want to take the responsibility for, because very few theatres these days, unfortunately, take that responsibility seriously. I think they would much rather get a show in that's just going to sell out just because they put it in the diary, but they won't actively go out and do a PR person's job. You really have to be your own PR person. So anybody that's thinking about doing their own theatre show, I would think very carefully about how much work you would have to put in to fill that theatre and get a good return on it.
You're a multi-award winning magician. You've won lots of different awards. You're British Champion of Illusion. You're also the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year. What your process of competitions? Why did you go down the road of competitions? Was it so you could advertise it to your corporate clients? Is that really why?
It was purely a marketing thing. So, like with the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year, they ring for a close-up magician, and I could literally say, have you heard of the Magic Circle? Yes. Well, I won the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year. So that's out of all the magicians, however you spin it. Obviously it is spin, it's marketing spin, but that's part of our job. But the person rings up and you say, out of all the magicians, that members of the Magic Circle, 3,000 worldwide, I won the top award for close-up magic that year.
Do you enjoy competitions, the process of it?
I do enjoy it. When I'm sort of there, you tend to be sort of on autopilot and letting muscle memory get you through, because it can be a very stressful environment. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy competing, and it's nice if you've got something new that you know the magicians haven't seen. So there are many times that I've entered things in competitions, and you're kind of waiting for that one moment that you know is really going to connect with magicians, where they're going to think, wow. Even like when I did the British Champion of Illusion, I knew nobody had seen the Clear Soaring in half live. The second girl on the reducer wasn't a well-known illusion at that point, so you're waiting for those points where you know this is even going to fool magicians, this bit.
And away from magic competitions, you also won Britain's Got Variety. Was that what it was?
Britain Does Variety.
Britain Does Variety. Sorry. What was that process like? And those guys sort of a few years ago were ringing around everybody, and there was a process I believe where they were kind of putting pressure on people to sell tickets for the live shows. But you won the whole thing. Was it a good process for you?
Of all the competitions I've ever entered, that was the best.
Really?
It was the best experience. The team behind it were very, very professional. And if they do it again and anybody wants to take part in that, I couldn't give them a better recommendation. It was so professional from start to finish. Far more professional than Britain's Got Talent.
Really?
They didn't pester you. They let you get on with it. They let you do your job. They had respect for your time. Let you use the music you wanted. Let you dress how you wanted to. I can't say enough about how well organised that competition was. From the very first day, you go in, you say, "This is what I do," and it's just a great opportunity actually to get on a stage in front of a very enthusiastic audience and do your act. And sometimes the great thing about a competition is it gives you something to work towards. And I think we're all guilty of just letting ourselves tick over and do the same material that we've done for years. But a competition sometimes forces you to do something new and add something new to your act to keep you stimulated and entertained. And at that point, that was the Blammo box change with Blammo my dog and the cape switch, which Jonathan Pendragon used, and that was our opening. So it gave us a reason to put that in the act and develop that as the opening.
You mentioned you were Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year. I understand you're not a member anymore.
No, I'm not. No.
Is there a reason why you sort of are not a member anymore?
There was a couple of things that happened. One was, I got very embarrassed one night when I invited Kevin James to come along as a guest, and he was kind of refused entry because he was with Curtis in the wheelchair, and Curtis was one of the guys that takes part in his Soaring in Half illusion, and he was in a wheelchair and it was pouring with rain outside and they weren't allowed in, and that really affected me, that did. There is also a rule as well that they changed this rule long after I won it. I think they changed the rule the year John Allen won the competition, and they changed the rule that you had to say the year that you'd won the Close-Up Magician of the Year. And so now you have to say Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year 1994. And I have to think of my business as me supporting my family and doing the best for my family at the end of the day. And you've got to think, if I'm advertising winner of the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year 1994, what kind of questions does that raise in people's minds that are looking at your website? For me, looking at it objectively, it makes you think, well, you lost it all the other years.
Right, yeah.
It's not a true reflection of your ability, because people will think you lost in the years following the year that you won, in my case 1994. I would argue that the winning the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year is like pretty much winning an Oscar in the movie world. And you don't see, Clint Eastwood, Oscar winner 1992 for Perfect World, starring Kevin Costner. It just says Clint Eastwood, Oscar-winning director. And I really think that competition should be at such a level that whenever you won, you shouldn't be restricted into reducing its impact for your potential clients. And for me, one of the key reasons why I'm not a member of the Circle, which I think is a great organisation, is the fact that I would be forced to obey that rule.
Wow, okay. There's been a lot of changes down there recently. Could anybody convince you to join? Because I think it's a shame that someone with such a high profile in Magic isn't a member. If
that rule changed and it was no longer enforced, I would join in a shot, because I think it's a great organisation, and it's nothing personal against the Magic Circle at all, because like I say, fabulous place, and with the new team I couldn't be happier with Scott and Richard actually in there sort of taking it further forward. I can't think of anybody better to do that. But at the end of the day, I have to think what's best for my family.
Yeah.
And if I can't advertise myself as, hey, I won the Magic Circle Close-Up Magician of the Year, now I have to say, well, actually it was 1994, that might impact on me providing for my family, and that has to come first.
So in amongst all these incredible things you've done, and I don't know how you've done it all, to be honest, you also own a magic shop. So
yeah.
How does that, are you here every day running the magic shop, or is it running itself, or you got somebody managing it for you? What's your involvement?
Well, there's a great team here at World Magic Shop. There's 5 people that actually work here all the time with Saturday staff. David Sangwell is the retail manager and takes care of all the orders. There's Beth here, order fulfillment and warehouse manager. Myself and John are the directors of the company, but we do other sort of productions, we do other sort of distribution from this warehouse as well. But this is really my office for my production side, as well as being World Magic Shop. I can come, use the office, use the facilities, use it as a meeting place as well. All my illusions are located here in the warehouse. But running a magic shop is just something I kind of fell into from my friendship with Jim Traynor and developing projects like Refraction and Coinvexed, and I became close to Jim, and the opportunity just arose to start working with Jim on the business. Jim, who sadly passed away last year to cancer. But it's the production side that fascinates me more, because I'm always coming up with ideas, always developing new concepts, new products, And that's the side I really work on, as well as doing the odd magic review show. So
is it good discipline as well? Because a lot of magicians crawl out of bed at midday and I don't know what they do all day, and then they maybe have a gig in the evening. I mean, do you find this is a good discipline, having a base camp as well, in terms of keeping you focused?
Yeah, it's... I don't think I've ever worked harder the past 4 years than I've ever worked in my entire career. And you really have to think about your time in sort of hour-long blocks, what you're going to do for that length of time. You've got to get things ready for certain times in the week. There's production deadlines to hit. But it's a great place for people just to come in, have meetings, and it forces yourself to actually be more like a businessman than somebody who just waits for the phone to ring and goes out and fulfills a booking for somebody.
I have, over the last 12 weeks, have had my life taken over by this podcast. And I thought it was going to be a quick, simple job, and it's really not. Yeah. You do something very similar. Every week, you put out the Wizard product review. Yeah. Has that been, and that's something really interesting that a lot of, I think it's fair to say, actually, you've been imitated a bit. Some other magic shops have jumped on it.
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
But have you found that that's really been worthwhile from the business perspective? I think people feel like they know you a bit better now as well, because they watch you every week.
Yeah, it's... It has been imitated, and some people even call it product review, which I think is a little bit of an insult. If it was a magic trick, everybody would be up in arms. The fact that somebody's created something and then it's been copied like this, and people have had review shows before, and then it's slowly become, in essence, what ours is, that format of honest magic reviews, a couple of people chatting together. And I think that's a shame that people haven't, tried to move it in a different direction. There's always somebody that comes up with something first, and then normally people move in a different direction, but I think a lot of people are moving in the same direction, and as a result, it's probably down to us to actually change and move ours in a different direction now, which we're looking to do in the future.
Good stuff. We've got to talk about some of your products, because I'm embarrassed to say I've spent a lot of money on a lot of magic tricks over the years, but actually I've never ever felt like I wasted money with any of yours, because there's so much thought and detail put into them, and you've put out a lot of stuff. What are some of your favourites that you've created and worked on?
Probably the trick that would probably surprise people, that I would say, is actually refraction.
That's the bending wine glass.
The bending wine glass, and to sort of meet Ted Leslie and talk about that, and him really to appreciate the psychology of the glass bending in somebody's hand, because nobody really gets refraction until they've actually had it done on them, and quite a few people, and even when I lecture I talk about it, and there's a really interesting thing that happens with the psychology, that once it's in their hand, they believe it's continuing to bend in their hands, and it's one of those classic bigger action covering a smaller action things, but they believe it's bending in their hand. And for somebody to bend a wine glass in their hand is very, very powerful, especially a wine glass that's just been on the table, all the way since the start of the meal, and then you sign that and give it a gift to them. I think refraction is the trick that I constantly get amazed at, the level of reaction that it gets. Yeah. And people, I think, were probably quick to dismiss it and be negative towards it, say it's something that's been done before, but actually when you do it in the hands of, say, a bride at a wedding, it's incredibly strong.
People keep them, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
such fun. What about Coinvex? Because you put out 3 versions of that, and it's evolved over times.
Yeah, well, the second one was really an update to the DVD, and it just changed so it could accommodate euro coins slightly wider. But the first one was just a coin gimmick, and then there was the coin and the Sharpie gimmick, and it's just gradually, even me, when I'm working with things, 6 months to a year after first bringing it out, you kind of think, well, that might be even better. And things do just naturally evolve over time. So I can't remember what the original question was.
Just the evolution of it, in terms to, obviously, why was it one of your best received products in terms to?
I think it's probably the one that sold the most, even though probably mystery solved. I just can't believe what's happened with that recently. That's just been crazy. But Coinvexed is just a perfect example of my creative process. I looked at what needed to be done. I remember once holding coins in my hand and just thinking to myself, right, well, this is what you've got to have. And my goal with Coinvex was to create a coin bending gimmick that you didn't have to palm. And I had all sorts of ideas with it, like a Sonada gimmick being used with the gimmick being on the other side, and all sorts of things. But in the end, I just thought, well, the coins are in your hand. And I just laid the coins down in my hand, and the solution just came to me.
I made a decision when I started doing this podcast that I wouldn't do the interviews on Skype, and I would go and meet the people. I'm so pleased I did this morning, because you've just shown me Mystery Solved.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, it's brilliant, and yeah, incredible. Tell us a little bit about your journey with that. How long has it taken, the journey of getting it from your brain to the out as a product?
I started working on a solution for it about 8 months ago, and I think, like a lot of people, I saw the Clarity Box, David Regal's Clarity Box. I saw it at Magic Live, and the retention of vision is amazing when the card comes out. But like a lot of people, I think, that bought the Clarity Box, they looked at it and they went, it's great, but surely the end game, the end goal has to be something the size of a mystery box that does the same thing. And that was when I first started thinking about it, when I saw that, a clear mystery box. It's almost like a dream. And I've showed you some videos today how it's actually evolved. The gimmick 6 months ago was in a completely different position, probably a more traditional position it ended up in. If anybody's familiar with the principles involved and how they're used in stage illusions, that's how it was conceived to start with. And anybody that's creating or wants to create a piece of magic, I would give you a bit of advice that it seems really bizarre to actually do this, but actually start to make it even though you don't have an end result. So what I did was I went to Hobbycraft and the model shops, and I bought clear bits of plastic and all sorts of bits of gimmickry to make the first thing, and I started to construct it out of sellotape and bits of glue. And when you make it, and when you actually physically have the thing in your hand, only then do new solutions and new possibilities reveal themselves to you. But to get to that point, you have to have started to make the thing to start with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So if you just said, right, I need to think of how this is going to happen, I wouldn't have created the final end result for Mystery Solved. But by actually making it and making a few mistakes early on and positioning the gimmick in different places within the box, do you eventually go, oh yeah, actually that works. And things only happen by accident, and you get those eureka moments because you made a determined decision to start without an end result. And it is like a eureka moment when you come up with the final end result. I was down in that office where you were this morning, and I remember saying to John, look at that. And we just both went, oh my God.
Cha-ching.
That's it. It's not. It actually wasn't about the money at that point. It's just a genuine excitement. Like, you saw it yourself. I showed you what it was, and you just like, that looks so good. And it's like going back to illusions, like we spoke about the op art illusion. The first time the girl gets in and she's got her head stuck out, you're looking at it and you just think, wow.
Yeah.
Jim Steinmeier is a genius. Look at that. Just look at that.
What are some of your favourite illusions? You've got an incredible inventory down there, haven't you? You've obviously, you've been collecting them for 20 odd years, have you?
Yeah, well, I think probably about 1998. I can't remember when I won the British Magic Championships. I think it was early 2001, something like that. I can't remember. actually it's probably about 12, 13 years since I won the British Championships. And at that time I had the pyramid, the reducer, the clear sawing in half. I remember when we did an extended set, I used to have the sword box, which was Wayne Dobson's, and a couple of other things.
You had an origami.
I had an origami
So
at the time.
I want to tell this story, if you don't mind. When I was about 14, I wrote to David and asked him about the origami illusion, because I was a kid in love with David Copperfield and all the rest of it. And you very kindly wrote back to me. I was a kid, you'd never heard of me, and you wrote me a really lovely letter back explaining to me about the illusion, and the fact that it was a illusion that was protected, and that there were people making rip-off versions of it, and that I should save my money, however long it took, and wait to buy a proper one. And I always appreciate that, and you probably have no memory of sending that.
I tried, when you mentioned you were coming down to do this, I actually typed your name into Outlook and tried to find it, and sent emails, but it was so long ago I couldn't find it.
It would have been 99, 2000,
Wow.
something like that.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate that. And what I want to touch on now, actually, is I think that just to be clear, Dave and I don't know each other. I've approached Dave and asked him to do this podcast, but I've always remembered that, and I've heard a lot of things about you in the magic community, and there's some people, I think it's fair to say sometimes you're seen as the panto villain of magic, but you've also got some people who will defend you very passionately. And so I'm just wondering, how do you feel about that, the fact that you've got your lovers and your haters, basically?
I think anybody that gets to a certain level in any business is going to upset people along the way. I'm very passionate about certain people that I support, like my family and that kind of thing, the people I work closely with, and I will do anything for friends and people that work very, very closely. But in the sort of, I don't know how to describe it really, the sort of magic business, I don't know what to say. It's a really good question. It's really thought-provoking. I think if people got to know me more, I think they would like me more. I don't know. I think everybody has the potential to rub people up the wrong way. I think I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. I can remember about 5-6 years ago, I was a very bitter person because what was going on in my life privately that I've just touched on recently. Getting divorced, it's a horrible time. You lose a lot of money to divorce, and I became a very bitter, angry person. And I think that probably lasted about 3-4 years, and I don't think I'm like that anymore. I think being responsible for a 10-year-old daughter and having a new family changes you, and I think you mellow a bit with time. But I guess if I've upset people over the years, and I'm sure I have, certainly made mistakes over the years, I don't think I'm that person anymore.
So, and that's off the back of inheriting a new daughter and a new life, effectively that's changed you?
Yeah, and I think just getting older as well. Right. I think when you're in your sort of early 30s, you're very sort of aggressive and go-getter. And I think anybody that's getting older and going through that time, they might feel that in themselves at that time. And it's not a bad thing from a business point of view, but it might change the way people perceive you. But in the business world, it might make you very successful.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got a little game which I like playing.
Okay.
If you're up to play a little game, and basically they're just quick fire questions actually. And let me see if I can find them here. Here they are. So you can be as brief or detailed with these responses as you like. So first one, who is your favourite magician and why?
Tommy Wonder. Why is because I was a very arrogant young magician. I just won the Magic Club's close-up competition, so I was the best magician out there. At least I was in my own head. And I learnt a cups and balls routine, which I did flawlessly in my head again, under the guidance of Ken Hawes, who was a great mentor of mine growing up. And I went up to the Blackpool Convention, and Tommy Wonder got out the cups and balls, and I very arrogantly thought, oh, I even do this. And that was my mindset at the time. That was honestly my mindset in the presence of Tommy Wonder. Can you believe that?
Wow.
And I was sat there on the front row, very arrogantly thinking, I'm going to spot every single load here. Where's the lemons going to come from? I'm looking at his pockets for the loads, and he completely kicked me in the head, and it just changed my mind completely about what close-up magic could be, and the fact that I didn't know it all, and I still had so much to learn. And I was very privileged to have some private time with Tommy Wonder, spend some time with him, and even today I think about the things he taught me.
Wow.
And he's probably the only magician actually that the day he died I actually cried.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really powerful, yeah. Do you want to take a minute?
No, I'm okay.
Right,
It just gets me emotional. I think about the reading the calf that day and everybody's messages.
Yeah. No, he was so loved. And what a legacy, though, you know? He'll never be forgotten, will he? Your favourite magician that you know today?
That I know today, at the moment, I would say Peter Turner.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And why? What?
Because he's taught me something recently. He's taught me how powerful a script can be.
Right.
And the scripting behind your performance, and the magic meaning so much more to somebody, going beyond that particular performance at the time. I've always been aware of the fact that whenever you perform for somebody, you change people's memories. But every single time I watch Peter perform and interact with a volunteer, I think, do you know what? My script just isn't good enough. It needs to be better.
Favourite trick that you perform?
It would probably have to be the clear soaring in half.
Really?
There's just something about when you rip those tables apart and you walk through the middle, you just feel like you're doing magic.
Wow, that's such a powerful illusion. That. Yeah, that's amazing. How about a close-up trick? A small close-up trick. Favourite of yours?
Probably at the moment, I would probably still say refraction.
Really?
Because of the impact that it has on people. But I like doing mystery solved and putting the whole deck under the box. I like the whole deck under the clear box, comes from James Brown, my inspiration with that. But I like that moment where the box is just so much, the deck is so much bigger than the clear box. Even better for me than the card being in the box at the end.
A favourite trick for you that you don't perform that you've seen another magician do?
Like if I could steal it and they wouldn't mind. Yeah. God, it's a lot. I'd love to do the sub-trunk like Jonathan Pendragon.
Really?
Oh, it's just something incredible about that moment, isn't there? Yeah.
You a big Copperfield fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've seen him live so many times. Copperfield's performance of the origami is amazing.
Yeah. Because
of just how he walks, and that command over that illusion is absolutely incredible. But yeah, I would say I wish I could stand on top of that sub-trunk and use that Rocky music and get away with it.
What's the suspended animation like to perform? Is that a challenge, or?
Yeah, the suspended animation is a great illusion. It's fantastic to do. I actually don't own it anymore because it's too similar to the water tank.
Yeah, I see.
And Jamie Allen has my suspended animation now and is doing very well with it. But I was doing the water tank illusion in the same show as the suspended animation, and I actually became a little bit despondent by people coming up to me immediately after the show and saying, I thought it was good how you did it at the start of the show and then at the end you did it again underwater. And they would actually think it was the same box, just on a different table because of the design of it.
Of course, yeah. My goodness.
Interesting how the public perceive things, that you were just doing the same trick again.
Best gig you ever did? Or you can say a few, if there are a few that you remember.
Yeah, I enjoyed doing that show at the Derngate because you said all the family were there and it was a great atmosphere. I did a tour a while ago of Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei and Manila, and that job, to be able to do that. I've been back to Hong Kong on a few occasions for the same client and done one-off shows, like illusion shows. But that was like a little tour of Asia, and it was unbelievable. Like, I think I had a taste of what it was like to be maybe 50% of Copperfield's level there, because it was all sort of business class, first class flights everywhere. All my gear was transported for me, a team setting it up, and I just flew in to each venue with the assistants and stage crew that were working with me at the time, and did this show in some very high-end venues for some very high-end people. One of which was the guy that in Hong Kong all the mobile phone networks are licensed through him.
Wow. And
he's got the highest house in Hong Kong on the hill where the tram goes, and nobody's higher than this guy. It's amazing. All I can remember about him was how amazing his suit was.
Really?
It had like no creases, and I couldn't believe his suit, how it fitted him.
What about it? Flip of that? Have you got some bad gigs that you've had, and why have they gone bad? Have there been some things that have been challenges?
I think every single year I've had something where it's been a challenge. Like, I had a gig the other day where I was booked to do a cabaret in a restaurant and there was just no space, so I ended up doing like a walk around cabaret spot, which was a little bit bizarre, but I still got away with it because I'd got a certain amount of material that could work under any conditions. I always remember the first time I performed for Arabs. It wasn't a bad gig, but nobody had told me that Arabs don't react.
Right. And
they watch in near silence. So if you can imagine doing something like the water tank, for example, or the clear sorry and a half, and you walk forward and you're going, yeah, and only a few of the younger ones are clapping.
Yeah.
But then after the show, they'll come up to you and go, that was brilliant, but they actually don't react in the same way. It's kind of like a cultural thing.
Yeah. Let's just touch briefly on TV magic, because there's a lot of it around at the moment.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? Are there particular TV magicians you like, or some bits that you don't like? There's obviously the conversation about editing as well. I think it's fair to say that some TV magic shows are edited in a certain way.
Yeah.
Some people would say it's cheating, really. It's not magic that could be performed live.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think, on the whole, it's good for magic, because if we perform something now for somebody, let's say we went on the streets and we did coin vexed, you know that somebody with a recording device, Sky HD or whatever, they'd be able to look back, and if they saw the whole performance, they would know how it works. It's there for everybody to see. There's a reason that you don't see it in real life. And I think TV magicians are not just hiding things. I think they've got a certain responsibility to actually hide things for live magicians that are out there, because most of the time, I think what we see in the final edit is actually a real reflection of what a spectator would actually remember.
I see. Okay.
And I think it's very easy for somebody to say Dynamo or Ben or Drummond edits something out. They edited out the move. Well, if you're a good magician, they shouldn't see that move anyway. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it should be in the final edit, because those people watching didn't see that move. Why should it be there in full HD, 2000 pixels, for somebody to watch back at slow speed and go, it's happening there?
Yeah.
When for the in the minds of those spectators at the time, it didn't really happen.
Jim Steinmeier, recently, I saw him lecture, and he said something quite interesting, which was, if they want to know, if they're prepared to go to that much trouble to understand, in other words, what you're saying, rewind, or watch something in slow motion, they deserve to know. Do you agree with that kind of thought process, or?
I'm not sure they deserve to know, like be rewarded for looking into it. I remember being a kid and watching the Zigzag and thinking, how does that work? I've got no idea. Even asking somebody older at the Magic Club and they wouldn't tell me. I had no idea how it worked. That was just Robert Harbin's standard Zigzag illusion. These days, punch it into YouTube and you'll find the answer. It's part of the reason why I said about the op art, I've changed the name of it.
Yeah.
So if somebody's in that audience and they write down abstract illusion, they'll not find the answer.
Yeah.
Unless somebody goes online and creates a video exclusively for me.
Yeah.
Which, if they did that, you've then got some call to have it taken down by YouTube.
Sure.
If they're using your name to get views without your permission.
What's the best live magic performance you've ever seen? Something that really inspired you?
Without a doubt, Siegfried and Roy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I never saw them.
Yeah, I saw them, and it was a good night. I have to say that because I've met so many people over the years that said that when they saw them, it looked a bit tired. I went to see them, it's probably about 13, 14 years ago now, and it was absolutely incredible. It was unbelievable. And you just can't comprehend what it's like for an elephant to disappear, regardless of the mechanics that's going on. For there to be nothing there, and then you see an elephant, it blows you away. It's like going back to Jonathan Pendragon. Most people listening to this will know how the subtrunk works, but it tears you apart emotionally when you see him rip that cloth apart and they've changed. It looks incredible. You do that with an elephant, regardless of the fact that you know the secret. It's incredible. The tiger, where they do like a Dizzy Limit style thing, and Roy and the tiger's on stage and they disappear, and then there's a clear box, and we were sat in these great seats thanks to Siegfried, very close to that clear box, and the curtain goes up and it's perceived to be in the middle of the audience. He then reappears with the tiger in a clear box on struts with no stage underneath. It's absolutely incredible.
I'm hoping.
He's in the box with a tiger.
Yeah.
It didn't end up too good in the end,
No,
but
such a shame.
But that on that night, you just go. That was the first of 3 times I was on my feet during that show.
Oh, really?
And it was like a very impulsive standing ovation. Like you just had to do it. It wasn't music. It wasn't lighting. You just had to get up and applaud.
I'm so jealous you saw that. Oh, yeah, it's my biggest thing. I never saw it, and I obviously never will. I know there's a lot of young magicians listening to this podcast. What advice would you give to a young magician?
In what sense?
Someone who's, let's say, about 15, 16 years old right now, magic's their passion, and they want to make it a living.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
I would say try and focus your performance on not just a procession of tricks if you can. Try and let the audience learn a bit about you personally, as you go on this journey with them that will frame as a performance. And try and reveal something about you and your thought process whilst you go on that journey with your audience. Don't ever treat your show like a procession of tricks if you can. And if you can avoid that and actually lend your performance towards the angles of them learning about you, your style, you personally. Think about what the trick means to you and why you're actually doing it and why they should be thinking about it after the show's even finished. That will mean that next time they need a magician, they will have to have you rather than just the magician that does that particular trick.
David, this has been great, and the time has absolutely flown by. Thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate your honesty as well. You've been really candid.
Thank you.
Huge thanks to David Penn for his time and hospitality at the World Magic Shop in Rugby. If you haven't been, go and check it out. It's an incredible facility and magic shop. If you can't make it to the shop in person, then you can check out the website worldmagicshop.com, and for more information about David Penn's own work, go to davidpenn.co.uk. Thanks very much for tuning in. See you again next week.